It does feel like Fox News is playing, and I never criticize Fox because they were so kind to me, but they are playing a central role in the propaganda operation here. It feels like.
It's what. Let's go back to the Iraq War. I mean, you were there, you saw it. Look at the Iraq War.
I promoted the Iraq
War.
Knowing,
because of the information you were giving, knowingly what they did. If you go back to look at Iraq, it's not like these things are successful. They're not successful. They're unsuccessful. They can't be successful because, as Lincoln told us, what you need is popular opinion to have your back. And we don't do enough about educating the American people on what reality is. In fact, they give them the exact opposite. That's why the rise of Trump is from two things. The rise of Trump is from the failed Iraq War and from the 2008 financial collapse.
Exactly.
You had Buchanan before that. We had Perot before that. We had even Reagan for some populism, nationalism. You had these sprouts. You could see people were trying to get there, but they couldn't. It was those two cataclysmic events, right? An epic failed war, right? That we were lied to about everything, the reason we went in. Because remember, at first, the American people supported it, given the information they were given. Then later, they realized that, hey, not just was the initial predicate for this a lie, all the updates were kind of a lie, right? All the updates were a lie. We really weren't winning, right? Until we sent General Kelly to the Anbar province to be the toughest tribe, it took forever. And 8,000 dead, 50,000 wounded, $9 trillion, $7 trillion in Iraq and $2 trillion in Afghanistan. You're just lied about the entire time. That's what's happening here. We're not being dealt with straight. And I'm just saying that on the information that's put out, the Israeli position on this has changed 3 or 4 times. First, it was the nuclear bomb, the processing. There was going to be something like last weekend. You had to go now. You had to go on Thursday night. It had to happen, right? Then we find out it's a year away at earliest, and then it's a decapitation strike. They're trying to have regime change. That just kind of came up over the weekend and saying, oh, well, since they're there, we're there, we have to do it. Understand, they said this is unilateral, we're doing our own, but understanding that they needed American air assets on the defense to protect themselves. And this is why the Arleigh Burke were rushed in, and this is why American air defense assets have been used nonstop. Now they're talking about, oh, by the way, we really can't take out Fedora. We can't take out the hidden mountainous second part of this. We need American combat sorties. We need American tankers to refuel us. We need the bunker-busting bombs, and we need assets. This thing changes all the time. When Tulsi Gabbard's still out there, as the last thing publicly said by a senior intelligence official, she said it in March. They don't have a program. They haven't had a program. And Bret Baier asked, that's what Bret Baier asked Bibi on Sunday night, and Bibi said, well, we have new information, new intelligence. Well, hold it. We were told that we gave you exquisite intelligence. You weren't giving us intelligence.
Exactly.
We have to have a total vetting. And by the way, we need to get a vetting on Ukraine. We need to get a vetting on, was American intelligence involved? Because it's a zero probability that without our satellites, without targeting information, without fire control information, there's no chance that the Ukrainians, as courageous as they are, as much valor as they have, could have pulled out something so complicated. And so this is right now the fight. The fight has to be, we have to take on the deep state, we have to name names, and we have to basically take these organizations and take them apart. And then you're going to unmask everybody in D.C. that's not really on your side. You're going to unmask all those people that say they're conservative and say they're Republicans. When they start protecting this, you're going to say, well, hang on for a second. This doesn't mean we're a constitutional republic. Trump's commander-in-chief, this is what a constitutional republic's about. I don't care if AOC is the president later on, or Bernie Sanders, or J.D. Vance, another right-winger. Right now, we have a system that's like the Praetorian Guard. It's got its own national security policy. It's got its own reason for existence, and it doesn't care whether it's progressive like Barack Obama or a economic populist nationalist like Donald Trump. And so that is the fight we have to take on today.
There's this mad scramble in Washington on the right to invoke Trump's name and to make the case that, no, I represent Trump. He's on my side. I'm true MAGA. And you wind up with these kind of hallucinogenic scenes where you have people who hated Trump and were never Trump. Mark Levin, hates Trump, which is fine. But he's like the standard bearer for Trump. But what makes it even more perverse is that these same people are allied with the deep state that is subverting Trump's stated agenda, which is negotiation toward peace, both in Ukraine
Absolutely.
And in the Middle East, Trump has said, we want to get to an agreement with a lasting peace so we can all be richer, safer, and happier. And in both places, his so-called allies who secretly hate him have destroyed that.
And most of those guys, are almost all of them to a person, were for the Ukraine war. People in your audience should understand one principal thing. We are farther down the pike in a kinetic part of a third world war than how World War II started. If you go back from September 1939, the invasion, the start of the European War, not the Asian, but if you start with the invasion of Poland by the Germans, and you go to June of 1941, the invasion of Russia by the Wehrmacht, and you look at that time, which really they called the phony war. You look at the casualties from the Battle of Britain, the Blitz, the fall of France. You look at what happened in North Africa early on, Finland, throwing 300,000 Finland. You add it all up, it's not half of what's happened between Ukraine and Gaza today, and now in Persia. We are much bloodier. This is we're in a shooting part of the Third World War. The Third World War is not about to start. It has started.
You probably heard about 8 Sleep. Lots of people are talking about it. It is a company with one mission, improving your sleep. And it's changing the way people do that, the way they get a good night's rest. We just got word that their team is launching a new product. It's called the Pod 5. It's an original and innovative mattress cover plus a blanket that uses precision temperature control to regulate your body's sleep cycles and give you the perfect sleep, which really, really matters. It can range all the way from 55 degrees to 110 degrees, meaning that you're covered no matter what. It's like electric blanket to the next level, but also a cooling blanket. So it makes you sleep better. Temperature has a massive effect on the way you sleep. By the way, it also detects snoring. And then it adjusts your bed position to reduce or completely stop it. So there are a lot of ladies in America who are going to be grateful for this product. Everybody who works here will tell you, because they all use it, that there's no better way to be alert, productive, and happy than by sleeping well. And 8 Sleep really does help. Visit 8sleep.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker to get $350 off your Pod 5 Ultra. If you don't like it, you return it within a month. That won't happen. We think you'll love it, but you can if you want. 8sleep.com/Tucker.
And that's what Trump is saying. What he wants to do is have everybody lay their guns down. Let's get to the table and figure out a tenuous, at least certain, subtle piece that we can then use capital and trade and commerce and try to rebuild these countries, and let's get people back to work and maybe tamp this thing down. Whereas the apparatus is exacerbating the conflict part of it. That's where we are right now in the summer of 2025. And this thing is going to be in the next 200 days. The next 200 days are some of the most perilous times for the American Republic in its history. Because if we don't get this sorted, we're going to be drawn in totally into a conflict as a combatant, as not a supplier of logistics, or as an actual combatant, a participant in the situation in Ukraine, what they did in Russia, and the situation of what Israel is right now doing to the mullahs, as bad as they are and as evil as they are, right? We're going to get sucked into a shooting war of which it'll be 10 years and the casualties will dwarf anything you saw in World War II.
One of the lessons that we never talk about from World War II, since you evoked the comparison, is that the second the shooting war started in Great Britain and the United States, opponents of the war went to jail. And Winston Churchill's entire political opposition went to jail with their wives for the duration of the war. And some of them died. That's been it's just a fact. And you can call those people whatever you want, and they may have been terrible people, whatever, but they were his political opponents and he put them in jail. And Roosevelt did, sick the federal government on opponents of the war, flat out. So if
Lincoln did the same.
And Lincoln did the same. That's exactly right. I love Lincoln.
And in areas that we control in the Revolutionary War, which is not a lot, the same thing happened. That's called war.
Exactly.
This is what happened.
Exactly. And opponents of war are invariably described as allies of the enemy, and they're persecuted. Do you worry about that happening to you? You just said on camera, I don't want this war, but we're moving toward a third world war.
Well, I saw look.
Are you worried about going back to jail?
I went to prison. I went to prison on a misdemeanor, but it was kind of one of the same things. I wouldn't testify. I wouldn't turn, because I said this committee is not legitimate. Doesn't have a ranking member. Doesn't have a minority counsel. Is totally legitimate. Plus, he's got executive privilege. That's good enough for me. And if I have to fight this, and I think it's going to go to the Supreme Court, although I've served my prison sentence, I'm taking it up to the Supreme Court because I had a pretty good ruling, not terrible, from the appeals court. A couple of the judges are making arguments about why I should take it further. It's definitely going to happen. Look what's happening to you. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and I sit there and I look at what they're saying about Tucker. I said, what is Tucker saying so bad? He's kind of laying out these arguments that ought to be debated right now in the halls.
I feel pretty moderate.
Tom Cotton's coming out and saying, oh, these influencers and podcasters aren't. Well, let's have a debate. When we had a debate about the Ukraine, about the funding of Ukraine in the Senate, we beat them. This is why Mitch McConnell had to resign. Because why? Because the podcasters and influencers are much closer to the MAGA base and can deliver the heat into the House and the Senate, and they know that. I'm all for having a War Powers Act debate right now.
Exactly, I agree.
Let's have the American people weigh in, because you're going to see the American people are 90% against forever wars.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.